Hi, I'm Andy. Welcome to Andy's Workshop Corner. I am going to make some inset cabinet shaker style doors today. This is the second part of the series of kitchen cabinet making. Shaker style cabinet doors are very easy to make. You can the styles and the rails range anywhere between 2¼ to 3¼ inches thick. I personally like 2½ inches. That's usually how I make my doors. Shaker style doors usually are an inset type application, meaning that you're going to make the face frame of the cabinet flush with the doors. So therefore you have to do some measurements. I go write down my measurements on a piece of paper, and then I get ready to cut. I trim up each individual piece as I'm making them because I want them to be square, and then we'll glue them up and get them all set. Our first step is to cut the stiles and the rails of our doors, and make sure your safety equipment in. You got ear protection, your eyeglasses are on. Next step is to cut out the actual measurements that you need from the rails. We just cut our rails down to the thickness that we need, which was 2½ inches, and now we're going to cut it down using this Incra 5000 miter sled that we put together in my first video that I made. We're going to cut ours to length. So the first step is to adjust the fence. I told you guys in the last video that I like to have about a 1/16 of clearance here between the blade and the table. I do that just simply because, well, really it just makes me feel better, and the fact that I'm like as little clearance as possible here. So once you get this all tightened down. Also told you guys in the first video that I want to store everything on my table saw, which makes it easy to get things. And now I'm going to cut them down the length. So the next step in the process is to do math. The total width of my opening is 27 inches. So the first thing I'm going to cut are my horizontal pieces. If I have 27 inches, so this is how I did my math. I have 27 inches. I'm making 2 doors. So that means I need a total of 4 horizontal pieces. 27 divided by 2 is 13½. My vertical pieces are 2½ inches wide. So I would subtract that. That gives me 5 inches that I would subtract from each door or each horizontal piece. Then my dado is a ½ inch on each side. So I would add that back to the board, which is a total of 1 inch, and then I would give it a 1/4 inch clearance, which gives me 9¼ length. So the vertical pieces are the easiest pieces to cut. My opening was 27 inches wide. I'm making 2 doors, but my height is 19½, with a 1/4 inch clearance. I'm gonna cut 4 vertical pieces at 19 1/4. So I have my horizontal pieces cut, I have my vertical pieces cut, and my next step is to cut the groove. So how I do that is I set up the saw, I use something to push it up against the fence. I use what they call it, the feather board. I use a feather board to push it up against the fence, and then I just cut all the pieces. I run it through 4 times, one side this way, then I turn it around, I do another side this way. I just do that because my blade, my dado set is it's good, I like it, but my blade which I use, my blade that I cut with is much better. So I just like to use it, and plus it keeps me from having to change back to a dado set, back to the blade, dado set, back to a blade, which gets annoying after a while. So this is how I cut the groove where the 1/4 inch plywood is going to fit in the center. So this is the vertical piece. As you can see, we've cut the groove in it. So our next step is to cut the horizontal piece to fit into this groove. And we've got a 1/2 inch on each side, so we've already accounted for that. So we're ready to set up our dado. It's pretty easy. The first thing you gotta do is set up your dado for a 1/2 inch cut. Then you dial it in on your horizontal pieces that we just cut, we did the math on. And once you cut it on both sides just like that. And then we'll glue it up. But this is how you do it. All right, so we made our horizontal pieces. Now I like to sand this side because it's hard to sand once you get the door together. So I sand it before I glue it, and it's not a heavy sand. It's just a light sand, and I'll show you how I do that. So I can get in a whole lesson of sanding, but sanding, when you sand hardwood, don't go any less than 80 grit. Don't go any more than 180 grit if you're using a clear coat, because to me 180 grit gives you the smoothest finish. It gives you a little bit of groove to get the clear coat in there. But basically what I do is I grab my piece just like this. You can see it. And I just take my 5-inch random orbital sander and I go get it up. And that's about it. All right, remember, no more, no less than 80, no more than 180. All right, so once you get everything cut, then what you want to do is glue it up. I use these Bessie clamps to help square things up when I glue it up. I don't use a lot of glue because I don't want glue to get down into this crevice. These Bessie clamps are very good. I have them in 24, 36, and 48. It's a good clamp to have in your arsenal if you're going to be making a lot of cabinet doors. So the next thing to do is to measure your inner plate. First thing you want to do is take the horizontal measurement and add 3/4 inch to it, which is 8 3/8. So you would add 3/4 inch to that, which would give you a 9 1/8. And then you want to measure your vertical, which is 16 3/4. And remember, we got to add our rail to this, or our upper piece to this. So there's still some that you have to subtract. So basically you have 2.5 inches you need to take off of that. Then you need to add another inch. So you want to add 1 3. You want to take off 1 3/4 from that. So if it's 16 3/4, then your measurement will be 15. All right, guys. Well, that pretty much wraps up today. We got our doors glued up. They came out really nicely. A couple things to remember before you glue it up: always sand the inside areas that are going to be harder to sand once you put it all together. I always sand the interior part of my stiles and rails, and I always sand my inside panel before I put it all together. Just much easier to do that before you glue it up. Don't use too much glue. Don't get glue everywhere. It's harder to finish. And our next step is to finish our drawers and finish our drawer fronts. You can do the same style on your drawer fronts. On our particular cabinet, we're not going to do that. We're just going to be using a flat surface. I just think that looks better. You have to have larger drawers in order to really bring out that shaker style on the larger drawers. If not, it kind of looks a little bit busy, but that's a preference thing. Anyways, like I said, these are going to be inset, and until next time, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them, and please subscribe. This is Andy's Workshop Corner.